But Chairman Gallagher, welcome. Congratulations. We've been talking about this for months. Can you tell us what we need to know about the Gallagher Committee, the China Committee, the Select Committee? I played your floor speech already, so I played that in the first hour. What's important for the audience to know about the new committee?
I think the big takeaway from the floor proceedings yesterday was the fact that we got an overwhelming bipartisan vote of support for the committee. It was 365 to 65. So means most of the Democrats actually voted for it. I think listening to the floor debate, you saw a lot of Democrats that, even those who were somewhat concerned that this would somehow go off the rails, ultimately came down in favor. They expressed recognition of the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party, particularly sort of the economic component of the threat is what Democrats like Ro Khanna tend to get motivated by. So I think that's a great starting point for the committee. Speaker McCarthy, you saw in his comments, very much was sincere in wanting this to be a bipartisan effort, and said a few things that I think are noteworthy. One, that the era of wishful thinking on China is over, and that certain things are obvious, such as the fact that ESG benefits the CCP. So that's an indication that we are going to have a very, let's say at times difficult but hopefully productive conversation with the financial community about how we prevent ourselves from subsidizing communist genocide and China's military modernization. So all things considered, it was a fantastic start to the committee's existence, and to have that overwhelming expression of bipartisan support from Congress, I think is important because that reduces the ability of the CCP to drive a wedge in Congress. And I would say for my Democratic colleagues who voted no, many of them expressed a concern that somehow the committee's work would intensify or fuel sort of anti-Asian American rhetoric. I think that's completely unfounded. I think that's just an excuse to oppose, a Republican effort. And part of what we did on the floor last night, myself and all my Republican colleagues, and even some of the Democrats recognized it, like Ro Khanna in his speech, is to remind people that we edited the name of the committee so that it says Chinese Communist Party because we are concerned about the threat posed by the party. We have no quarrel with the Chinese people. The Chinese people are the primary victims of the CCP's oppression and repression, and we must remind people of that basic distinction at every turn. So a great start to the committee yesterday.
I was glad to hear that in your floor speech. I know that you've made that point repeatedly. This has nothing to do with Chinese Americans. It has a lot to do with the agents of the Chinese Communist Party, and they are numerous in the United States. The espionage threat is real. In fact, yesterday I got my advanced copy of Mike Pompeo's new book, Never Give an Inch, and it starts off by hammering on China, pointing out the reset that occurred under the Trump years in our recognition. This morning in news items by John Ellis, the Chinese Foreign Ministry announced yet another saber rattling about Taiwan and attacking. I think it was an attack on the Gallagher Committee, but I'll leave that to you to read. I would like to know some specifics. How many members will it have? Do you know? Who is going to be the ranking minority member, and what members are you certain are going to be on the committee with you?
There will be 9 Republicans and 7 Democrats, so a smaller committee analogous to the size of the Intel Committee, a little bit smaller than that, actually. I actually think that is an asset. It makes us more nimble. It makes us our ability to respond to things quickly, more obvious and easier. As for the specific membership of the committee, starting with the ranking member on the other side, I don't know. That'll be for Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, to decide entirely. I do know this. We have a lot of Democrats with serious national security street cred that have asked me about it and have said they've asked Hakeem Jeffries to be considered for ranking member. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the ranking member will be someone of substance, not only with the right temperament, but with the right background to bring to bear on these issues. And that'll make our work, again, more bipartisan. So that's a good thing, in my opinion. But we'll see. That's entirely up to the Democrats to choose. And I spoke with Hakeem Jeffries on the floor yesterday, and I just reiterated the fact that, I'm not going to use this to score cheap shots. This is about putting America in a position where we can win this new Cold War and we can deter World War III in the near term, where we can enhance our deterrent posture. So my hope is they'll participate. On our side, similarly, Kevin McCarthy will make the decision. I'm submitting a list of recommended members, but it's ultimately up to the Speaker. He's got to balance a lot of things. I will say this, Hugh, we have a lot of really talented members. We have freshmen that I think that could hit the ground sprinting on this issue because of their military background. People like John James, Morgan Luttrell. We have people that, because of their experience and where they represent, like the new representative from Guam, that I think would have a phenomenal perspective that we need to leverage, whether they're on the committee or not. Young Kim, Michelle Steele, people like that. So I'm very excited about the group of members we're going to have on our side. Just sort of and I know that Kevin McCarthy is only going to put serious people on the committee. So we don't have the membership yet. That's the next step. In some ways, that's the most important step, but I'm hoping to have that resolved either by the end of this week or early next week so we can really get to work.
Now, Chairman Gallagher, the Democrats are mad at Speaker McCarthy because he has announced his intention to remove from the Intelligence Committee Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff. Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff, yes, and Ilhan Omar from the Foreign Affairs Committee. It is my earnest hope Hakeem Jeffries does not, for political points, appoint any of those three to the committee, that he stays serious from the beginning. But I know there's a red line there. Any worry on your part that Hakeem Jeffries will try and score a political point by putting people on that McCarthy just has to immediately remove?
I really hope not. Based on my conversations with my Democratic colleagues now, I don't think so. But, it's the House of Representatives. Things could always get a little bit crazy. So I just hope they avoid that temptation. And it would really, we'll proceed regardless on the Republican side. And it might create a little bit of theatrics and hearings, but it won't meaningfully impair our work. I think it would really undercut the ranking member on the Democratic side. If they have to deal with, a super woke, progressive, crazy, it's gonna make them look unserious. That would be unfortunate, in my opinion. So I really hope they don't go down that road. As for Swalwell, there are serious security concerns with respect to his position on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Everyone's aware of that. I'm sure you've talked about that on your show. So we're not dealing with that from a perspective of politics. We're dealing with it from a perspective of what's best for American national security. And so again, I hope we can avoid the political point scoring, and I hope it doesn't affect the Select Committee on China's work. Now,
Chairman Gallagher, does the committee have subpoena power?
It was not specified in the rule, but we're working through the logistics in terms of what the overall rule, what it means for the select committees. I don't anticipate it being a problem at all. The worst case scenario is when we do joint hearings, we can subpoena that way. But right now, in talking with the leadership staff, I don't think it's going to be a hurdle that we can't overcome.
Now, in terms of getting cooperation on the espionage side, you've got to get the executives from Meta, the executives from Google, the executives from all of the large social media companies in to talk to you about TikTok and other issues, including penetration of their own organization by agents of the Chinese Communist Party. Do you anticipate anticipation from big tech on this committee?
Well, I'm sure some big tech executives are not eager to talk to the committee. But the approach I'm taking now is one of, okay, I want to give you an opportunity to explain your position. I come in with certain pre-existing biases. If you want to make a counter argument, that's fine, but we're going to do it out in the open for the American people to see. And if you refuse to comply with that discussion, and my honest desire to have that discussion, I think ultimately that's going to be a bad look for your company, and I think you're going to invite more scrutiny from Congress than there already is. The fact is, big tech has to confront the growing suspicion about their allegiances, the growing suspicion about their practices, the perception that there's a complete lack of transparency. And it's not just my committee that would have an interest in that. It's going to be Jim Jordan's committee that has an interest in that, particularly when it comes to the perceived collusion between certain big tech companies and the Biden administration. So they ignore those questions. They ignore our request to testify at their own peril. And just look at what's happened in TikTok to TikTok in the last 2 months. There's been a sea change in Congress in terms of recognizing the threat posed by TikTok. We had a overwhelmingly bipartisan vote in favor of banning TikTok on government devices. I have a bill for the broader ban that has Democratic support. Mark Warner is talking about the threat posed by TikTok in the Senate. So if you hesitate, if you prevaricate, you're going to invite more congressional scrutiny and opposition. So I hope that that doesn't happen. I also want to give an opportunity for the tech companies that are out there that I know have a more patriotic view right now, or at least still think of themselves as American companies and recognize how essential they are to us winning this long-term competition with China. I want to give them an opportunity to talk about how we win, right? We cannot win this unless we have American companies that are out innovating their Chinese counterparts and indeed think of themselves as Americans. So I don't think we'll have any problems getting big tech to comply. If they do, it's just going to be very problematic for them.
Two final questions, Congressman, and we have 2 minutes for them. I would like to see the two entities most visibly compromised by China. That would be the Walt Disney Corporation in the form of Bob Iger and the NBA in the form of Commissioner Silver. I would like Iger and Silver before your committee to answer questions. And is that possible? That's my first question. Do you expect those two to be early witnesses as emblematic of what the CCP has done to American organizations dependent on their market?
Yes, I do. So, consider this me giving them the initial warning order that they'll have to testify before the committee. I'd be even willing to go out when it comes to Hollywood or Disney. I'd be willing to go out and sit down with them where they are, engage with them in a discussion. But we want to have a discussion in front of the American people. I think it drives the American people crazy when they see the NBA bending the knee to Xi Jinping. It really drives them crazy. And also, the bigger concern is that it gives us a preview of what's going to happen to the rest of our domestic industries if we allow the Chinese Communist Party to control the commanding heights of technology and the economy. They will be able to blackmail the entire world. They will be able to coerce the entire world. That's not just isolated to the greedy executives in Hollywood or the NBA. That's a preview of things to come if we do not change course with a sense of urgency.
So Bob Iger and Adam Silver will be before the Gallagher Committee. Less than 30 seconds. Yesterday, the CNO made remarks that our industrial base only supports the production of 1.2 submarines a year. Is that on your agenda, or is that on HASC's agenda, or both agendas? 30 seconds, Congressman.
HASC will be in the lead. I intend to provide supporting fires. I'll also be a subcommittee chair on HASC. Obviously, I'm passionate about sea power. Mostly that's a workforce constraint right now, but we haven't gotten the demand signal right. Because we haven't had a coherent shipbuilding plan, industry can't plan. They can't make long-term plans if they get this 2 steps forward, 3 steps back approach from the Navy. So we need to get the demand signal right so we can satisfy our own needs as well as capitalize on AUKUS.
Chairman Gallagher, keep coming back. Congratulations. The Gallagher Committee matters.